For flagship IEM, BGVP Solomon is definitely flagship grade kind of stuff. I think it is well on the money that you pay, 1,299 US dollar. The packaging itself is just very impressive. It comes with this very luxury looking box which contains not just the IEM but also some ear tips and also a very nice carrying case. Let's just have a look at the IEM itself. It is surprisingly not that big. I have placed it on my scale and it weighs 7 grams. Kind of a bit lightweight considering that you have quite a lot of drivers inside this, which is a hybrid, 9 drivers inside. Very well designed when it comes to ergonomic. I was able to wear it for the last 3 hours without any hint of fatigue, without any hint of element of abrasiveness. Super comfortable. And on top of it, depending on which ear tip you choose, vocal ear tip, bass ear tip, and liquid silicone ear tip, I have found that I am liking the vocal ear tip the most because it gave me the best balance of seal and comfort. I am not hearing that much of ambient noise seeping in. Being very well designed, it also have a pressure relief system, which means that you're not going to get any kind of build-up pressure once inserted into the ears. The most interesting thing about this Solomon is that it comes with 2 cables, both of them Furukawa premium cables, and it only comes in 4.4 mm balance termination. So if you need to use 3.5 mm single-ended, you may need to work out to get an adapter to reduce it to 3.5 mm single-ended. The 2 cables are pretty much very similar, but there are some differences. The one which is marked as temple cable, obviously bigger, thicker, and it contains some element of silver in it. And this one, the one that I'm using right now, which is the default cable, OCC single crystal copper, no hint of silver inside it. And after using it for quite a while, I actually prefer this one, the one without the silver element in it, because it offers the kind of sound which I would consider as a bit more organic, less technical but more organic and smoother sounding. The temple cable, which is the one that contains silver element, does release a bit more of resolution, details in the upper frequency. With a very low impedance rating at just 7.3 ohm and sensitivity 110 dB, BGVP Solomon, just like many other hybrid IEM, is very easy to drive. When I first received it, directly I attach it to my Xiaomi Mi 90 using 3.5 single-ended adapter. I was already like, wow, this thing sounds amazing already. It sounded full, it sounded wholesome. So it begs the question, do I need better source to get the very best out of this Solomon? So I tried it with 240 milliwatt of power from my time ear BTE9 here, 4.4 mm balance and running on high gain. And yet again, I was like, wow, this thing sounds amazing. Yet again, even better because I am hearing the kind of sound stage which is more open, the kind of transient speed which is more dynamic, and it is also the kind of details from end to end, from the upper frequency to lowest frequency. The extension seems to be far-reaching. And of course, out of curiosity, I scale it even further with 710 milliwatt of power from my Hibi R8 Mark II, which is a reference depth. And this is where things get really interesting. Again, just gonna simply put, my brain was melted because I am hearing the kind of sound which is totally out of this world. Okay, now the question is that with that kind of sensitivity and very low impedance, does it pick up floor noises? I also connected Solomon to my 6500 milliwatt of power from my Aune N7 amplifier running on Class A amplification. I do need to crank the volume at the lowest, maximum at 2 out of 30. And surprisingly, this thing does not sound shouty at all. It was able to handle that extreme amount of power. And what I get in return is simply, again, the keyword here is mind blown. I'll try to make this as concise as possible. Let's say that if I were to conclude my year 2025 now, here, today, then I think I would make a declaration that this BGVP Solomon would be my top pick for 2025 when it comes to IEM price at 1,000 US dollar all the way to 2,000 US dollar. This thing is just, like I mentioned earlier, mind-blowingly amazing when it comes to sound. It is super easy to drive. It synergizes really well with every type of sources which I have thrown at it. It does not take much to enjoy the fullest potential of this Solomon. Why it is an amazing IEM? The balance of technicality and musicality. If you pay attention to high-end IEM, anything that goes all the way to 3,000 or even beyond, usually those kind of IEM, they try to push the boundary of technicalities. And unfortunately, in the process of doing so, they tend to sacrifice on one element, which is musicality. So they might ended up sounding kind of a bit clinical, kind of a bit sharp sounding. And the best example which I can give you is that something like FIO FA19, which is also my favorite IEM. FA19, if I were to compare with this Solomon here, FA19 does not sound organic at all. While this Solomon here offer the kind of timbre, the kind of tonality which is just simply very organic, analog and natural sounding, especially using this Furukawa cable here and when paired with my Hibi R8 Mark II. Now, that is not an easy balance to achieve, okay? Because like I say, it is not difficult to actually achieve technicalities. And speaking of technicalities, of course, you can expect best-in-class technicalities like resolution, imaging, details, layering, separation, soundstage, and holographic element all are top-notch. The very best which I have heard this year so far, especially when it comes to the resolution itself, the way it projects, especially the mid-range, it has that kind of vertical depth. Many IM would be able to give you that kind of horizontal kind of depth, but this one, just like FA19, will offer vertical depth, which is, like I say, not an easy thing to achieve. And then on top of it, it is pretty much something which I would consider as more of a W sound curve. It has that coloration anywhere from the upper frequency, mid-range, all the way to the low frequency. Yes, this thing is not exactly transparent sounding, because if we talk about reference sound, especially talking about kilobucks IEM, they tend to aim for reference kind of sound. And the best example that I can give you here is that FIO FX17 and also the recently released Soft Ears RS5 Mark II. Those are the kind of reference sound, which means that they are pretty much neutral. They prefer neutral kind of sound frequency with the least amount of coloration. But this one is definitely colored, but the kind of coloration which I love, especially the lower frequency, that bone conduction, lower frequency offer the kind of tactile. You can actually feel the lower frequency, anything from the mid bass all the way to the sub bass, which offer the kind of extension which is really mind-blowing. Especially if you listen to very high resolution DSD 1-bit file, then you're gonna hear, hey, I haven't heard that detail before. It is there, but this thing was able to extract that out. I would classify Solomon being very rich with the mid-range itself. It is, like I mentioned, being colored. Being colored means that there's a hint of warmth, especially to female vocal, contralto vocal especially, and even high-pitched soprano. The vocal itself would sound very smooth, immersive and engaging. I don't mind the coloration at all, especially when listening to jazz, because it makes things really exciting. And when it comes to the instrument, especially when it comes to percussion drum or even string instrument, the attack is fast, it is tidy, it is the kind of attack which will be suitable for any type of demanding music. Very complex music, classical music, violin, etc. or even guitar or even hard rock or even metal music, you name it, this thing can handle every type of speed. The upper frequency. Remember what I mentioned earlier? The most difficult balance is to achieve that balance between musicality and technicality. While it is not difficult to achieve amazing upper frequency technicalities, to achieve proper amount of dampening and moderation while retaining the kind of superb technicality on the upper frequency is not an easy thing to do. But you want to know what? Solomon was able to do that. So what I'm trying to say here is that the upper frequency offers the kind of extension which is very far-reaching. It offers the kind of micro detail, macro detail, airiness, sparkly, energetic vibrancy, despite being very technical, non-offensive at all. So I think even for people who are treble sensitive, they would find that this Solomon very smooth sounding. And of course, you might be wondering, how does it compare with other flagship IEM, which I have tried so far? In comparison with this FIO FX17, I'm just gonna simply say that this is a bit more colored as compared to FX17, because FX17 focus a bit more on being technical rather than musical. pretty much very similar to FA19, but not as clinical sounding as FA19. And if you want something which is like a bit more warm sounding, this is it. And of course, there's another comparison with another big name, T-Audio Monarch Mark IV, a huge favorite for many people. After trying between Monarch Mark IV and this, it is kind of a bit difficult for me to choose, but if I have to choose, then I would say that I might even choose this, because this one does appear to be kind of a bit warmer sounding, kind of a bit smoother sounding, especially with the combination of when attached to my HiBR8 Mark II. So let's just conclude why this is potentially my top #1 pick for 2025. But then again, I need to be realistic. There's still quite a bit of few of, flagship IEM, 1K to 2K IEM being released now, which I have yet to try. But as far as I'm concerned, if my 2025 were to end now, this will be my #1 pick. Because of that superior technicalities, this Solomon does not sacrifice on the element of musicality, which means that this Solomon is one of the most immersive sounding flagship IEM I have tried so far. Thank you so very much for watching the video until the end. Without skipping, I hope. Now click like and subscribe, and also follow me on Instagram under the name of Andy AV. And also, if you'd like to support me directly, you can join the membership below for behind the scene, especially for AAV Insider and above, which will allow you to see what I am doing behind the scene.